Welcome to the Top 200 podcast with your host, Herschel Fawn.
What's up, everyone? This is Herschel Fawn from High School Top 200, and this is the Monday morning meeting. If this is the first time you're coming across this channel, welcome. This is where First 15 happens, and the only place where First 15 really happens. And I talk about all the teams and players and rankings and all that kind of stuff. Like, subscribe, comment, share, all that kind of stuff. Ask me questions if you want to know. If you're new to First 15 Rugby and you just want to ask questions, just let me know what it is. I'm pretty open about what my opinions are. But this Monday morning meeting is going to be pretty short. I mean, I kind of explained it in my fullbacks video, my top 5 fullbacks video, and for everyone that watched them, I hope that you enjoyed it and gave you guys a bit of insight for what's to come next year, or what this year was, and guys that are going to be back next year as well, because I did some year 12s. I was thinking maybe I should do like a top 5 at the beginning of the year and then see how different my top 5 is at the end of the year. I don't think it would be that much different. I think positioning-wise, like where everyone landed will probably be different. But I think mainly the same guys would have been there. Maybe different positions. I probably would have swapped one from second five to centre, or centre to wing, or wing to fullback, or halfback to prop. That last one's not true. It's just giving a variation. But I mean, so I hope everyone enjoyed that top 5. And so before I tell you guys all, what's going to happen with the reason why I picked the top 5 and all that kind of stuff, there are some other things that I want to talk about. Now, obviously, a lot of people that come on this or followed me on High School Top 200 know that I'm keen on American football, and I'm a football player first. I think I'm a basketball player first. I'm a basketball fan first before anything else. I'm an All Black fan first, then basketball. And then football and all that kind of stuff after. But this story was interesting, and I think a lot of you guys that follow American sports know about this IMG game that they had on ESPN against Bishop Sycamore and so just to give you some context about this, IMG is a sports academy that's in Florida, and at the sports academy, it pretty much just is a sports academy. They do schoolwork, but everyone that goes there, you're there for sports. Sports is the first thing and the main thing, and then closely second is schoolwork. And they don't just abandon all schoolwork, but sports does come first. There is still an educational standard that you have to reach to continue to play, and the cutthroat thing is that if you don't reach the grade point average that you need, they easily have someone else that they can replace you with. So the idea of it is that you stay on your P's and Q's in the classroom so that you still have your spot on the Sunday or the Saturday or the Friday whenever you play your sport. So that's how IMG Academy works. Now, IMG Academy is also ranked number 2 in the country for football, and I think St. John's College Bosco is the number 1, and they're from California. It's a Californian team. With someone's in Tongan, so that's why I support those ones like De La Salle College and Long Beach Poly. I support those guys because they have all the Islanders in them. Mater D is another one. But so IMG, they couldn't find an opponent because they're ranked second. They're a beast of a team. They couldn't find an opponent, so they went to this third party to find them an opponent to play because ESPN wanted them on a game. So what happened is that this third party pretty much made up a high school, and then had a lot of dropout college players and dropout high school players and junior college players come and fill in this roster for this fake team so that they could play on national TV against this IMG team. Now, no one knew knew that they were going to do this. They just asked, ESPN just asked these guys, just go find us a team that we can put on TV with IMG, so that they can televise the game. And so when they made up this team, ESPN didn't fact check this team, that it was an actual team, that they were actually ranked. They said, so the more university scholarships that you have in your team, the more prestigious it is, and the more higher ranking you get, and all that kind of stuff. But this Bishop Sycamore team said that they had 21 Division 1 scholarships, which is a huge number. That's a huge number. And so they just believed it, and they just put them on TV. Now the worst thing is that these were men in the fake team playing against boys in the academy team, but the academy team won 58-0. They still beat up on these men, made them look silly. Could have been more, because they actually just swapped out. They brought on all of their second and third stringers to come play, because you don't want, if you're smashing a team, you don't want any injuries. So against this fake men's team, or this fake high school team made up of men, they still gave them a hiding. The high school team still gave them a hiding. And the worst thing is that for someone like ESPN to not even fact check just a little bit, they could have just asked their own guys, who is Bishop Sycamore and how good are they? They could have just asked that in just one email. They didn't even do that, they just let it go by. And then even the commentators were like, they were puzzled, because they were just like, well, we don't even know what the school is. We don't know any of these players. They say that they have 21 D1 scholarships, and it doesn't look like it, not from the way that they're playing. And then, IMG was just ripping these guys up. And all these guys kind of think about it like this too. Like, what if Sky was looking for a team to, play someone like Hamilton Boys, and then some guy just made up a team of like men just to play high school players, and then gets swept and gets smoked by 50 points. That's what ESPN is dealing with right now, and trying to explain, like, how did this get through? It's so silly. It's so stupid the way that they did it, and the way that they just let it go like that. Like it was going to be nothing, and no one would even, no one would even realize that this was a fake team. Now I was thinking, like, some kid is going, hey, my dad's on TV playing for a high school, but he's like 7. He's like, hey, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, things just like that just don't go. Like, you shouldn't be an organization that big to not just send one email to, like, whoever your experts are to go, is this actually a real team? Because 21 scholarships, D1 scholarships, is a lot of scholarships for a high school football team. You are one of the best if you have that. Like, IMG probably have something around 20, 21. And then we'll probably get more going on, throughout the year. We'll probably get more than that. I thought that was kind of interesting, because it's like such a weird problem to come across, and then have these men get dealt to by kids. It's just like, oh, how's your ego after that? Because I'm guessing, like, all these guys probably thought, oh, cool, if we get on TV, someone will recognize us, and then they might give us a second chance. It's like, oh, maybe that's more of a reality check of how good you think you are to how good you actually are. That would be like one thing that would be so, just a reality check on that. But I have this discussion with quite a few people, and talking about first 15 players and club players. It's like, I don't know, I'll take the best first 15 teams around the country over most club rugby teams, to be honest, because they can drop some big numbers on you. And talking about this age gap, right? Talking about age gaps, like, I want people to listen to this part really carefully, because I feel like people make this an excuse. Just like the excuse of, oh, they must have paid the ref. That's the worst excuse ever. They must have paid the ref. Like, though at the beginning of the game, they're behind the sheds going, oh, here's $50, you better make us win. It's like, you mean the ref who's like a lawyer, or the ref who's like an architect, you know, the ref who's, it's like, because these refs, most of the older guys that are refs, they're all professional people that make a bunch of money. They're just trying to stay fit and just give something back to the game. They didn't need your dumb $50. And how much are you going to pay someone to win an under 14 game, an under 16 game, a first 15 game? It's like, how much are you paying for this guy and his integrity? It must be pretty high, or it must be. It's like, no, I don't see any ref. I don't see any ref at all going, well, you're going to slam me $50? It's like, no. No. Not even a kid is going to be like, it's like, kid will probably be too scared about getting in trouble. But those are the kind of excuses people like to have right on the tip of their tongue as an excuse for why they lost. The other one is year 14s, which is the one that I want to talk about. People my age, think about year 14s or second year 7ths, which is my age group of how we used to say it. They think of it as he's a 19-year-old turning 20 coming back. When that's not actually true. That's not even remotely true of how it is. I was a second year 7th coming back to school because I turned 17 in August, and then I wanted to go on my mission, but I was going to be a year out of school until I turned 18. Like, when you're a 17-year-old out in the world and you have to wait till you're actually an adult at the end of the year, still don't know what you want to do or how things go, yeah, you just go back to school. Now that's what the young year 13s are. That's what I call young year 13s. As a kid who's 16 at the beginning of the year, and he turns 17 in that same year, and he's still under 18 by the time he finishes school. He's still 17, hasn't turned 18, and he won't turn 18 till the next year. That's why he's a young year 13. So even when he comes back the year after, he turns 18 in that year. He doesn't turn 19. He turns 18 in that year. Still the same age as everybody else. Because some people in your form are going to be 16 turning 17 or 17 turning 18. You don't need a birth date for someone to do that. You know, you don't have to have a, like, someone asked me, I was like, are you going to put on their birth dates? It's like, why? You can't even add that up anyway. Well, I'm going to say, oh, well, it's 2000 this, and you're going to be, oh, 2000, to start counting on your fingers. Like, cut it out, bro. You don't need anybody's, like, birth dates. I'm telling you, and this is how you kind of know, right? It's because if they made the under 16 year, if they made the under 16 representative teams, and they're year 12s, next year, they're going to make the under 17 team. The year after, they can make the under 18 team. That's how you know. That's the easiest way to figure it out. Because you can't make the under 16 team if you're turning 18 that year. You have to be under the age of that. So when you're under 18s and you're second year 7th or you're year 14, you're under 18. You're not turning 19. You're turning 18 that year. You're 17 at the beginning of the year, and throughout that year, you're going to turn 18. You're not going to turn 19. You don't skip a year. So all of you guys out there that like to have a go at all these guys, just like, oh, well, he must be 19 because he's year 14. It's like, no, he was just younger than everybody else. He's younger than everybody else. Have you ever thought about that possibility, that he was younger than everybody else that he came up through? And he's not the only one. There's like 30 of them in a class of like 100. There might be half of them. Like, if you've got a class of 100, you probably have 40 to 50 guys who are all young year 13s. The only reason why you know about him with rugby is because he actually matters, because he's a good player. The other guys are just scientists and mathematicians and builders and plumbers and guys that want to study law next year or medicine. It's like, that's the only reason why you don't know. But if they were in the debate team, you wouldn't have a problem with that. For some reason, you'll have this understanding. Or if that kid was in your team, all of a sudden you've got this argument of the side of like, he only turns 18 this year. But if it's the guy on the other team who's a good player, you're like, oh, well, you got to check it. He must be 19 turning 20 or 18 turning 20. It's like, no, shut up, man. One thing, just leave the kids alone. If you don't like the kid because he's good, tell your boy to play better. Don't say that this kid is a 19-year-old if you don't actually know. Just like screaming out, they must have paid the ref. It's like, no one cares about under 15Bs that much to pay a ref. No one cares that much about this kid who's 17 turning 18 this year and he wants to come back for another year because he can. He needs more credits. He doesn't know what to do. The big bad world of being an adult, he's not prepared for it. It's like, why not? I mean, you don't get angry when he makes New Zealand secondary schools or, the Blues or the Chiefs or the Crusaders or whatever. My thing is, it's like, you got to stop saying that these kids are 19 just because they're year 14. If I say they're young year 13, it means that they were 16 turning 17 in their last year of school. So they decided to come back again for the year 14 to be 17 to turn 18. Still under the age of under 18. Still under that bracket and grade of under 18. Still under the fact that they can make New Zealand secondary schools, which is an under 18 team. Not an under 19 team. It's an under 18 team. That's why you see university players who left school a year early still make the Crusaders. Still make the Highlanders. Still make the Hurricanes. Because they're under 18, they're still under 18 but going to university. They just didn't want to come back for year 14. They decided, I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go and study again. But he's the 17-year-old at university. Do you get it? Stop talking about why kids are a year 14 and you just think that just because he's year 14, he must be turning 19. Say, no, haven't you ever thought they're just young? And it's so strange that a lot of people have a negative connotation about why that's the way that they were. It's like, because the parents put them in kindergarten earlier, or it's just the way that it worked out, or they jumped the grade because they were smart. But you guys all think it's rugby motivated, that they were young. It's like, not from the age of 5 we weren't thinking that. Like, I have no plans for my girls to be that, but they're going to end up finishing school at 17. Now, if my daughter gets good at basketball, she's straight to the States if she's good enough at basketball. So she can have one more senior year at basketball over in the States. If she's good enough. If she's not, I just say, stay here. I'm not going to waste my money and time. But all you people out there that have this problem with young year 13s or year 14s, it's just like, I don't see what the big deal of it is. I don't see, there's no advantage to them being that age. They're still the same age as everybody else that is at school. So I don't know where this advantage is. I don't know where people got this idea that like they've got like this massive advantage because I was just like, no, not at all. What are you talking about? You have no massive advantage. They're still the same age as everybody else. It's like, it's weird. It's weird, and it's weird how people. I had this guy texting me, trying to get me to tell him who all the year 14s were, and what their birth dates were, and things like that. I was like, and he wasn't the only one. There was like a few of them. They were all like trying to ask me these questions under phone numbers that I didn't have names to, and every time I'd ask like, "Oh, bro, who are you? What's your name, bro?" And then they just wouldn't answer after that. So, and I just sort of said, well, who am I talking to first? Like, I don't want to talk to, plus 64, whatever. But they were so hung up on the idea that these guys were an advantage. They were at an advantage over everybody else because they were year 14, but they were all just turning 18 just like everybody else. But because they're called year 14s, they have an advantage. Now, I don't see how. If someone knows a reason how, explain it to me. But I don't see how. Because, I mean, like, you can't, like, you don't complain that guys that leave school early and don't come back for the year 14, I don't see you arguing for them being at a disadvantage when they go into club rugby. You know, who's arguing for Harry Godfrey from Whanganui Collegiate last year, who could have come back this year as well, making the under-20s New Zealand? Is anyone out there going, hey, wait, hold on, he can make New Zealand secondary schools? You can't make that team. You're too young. Because you're under 18, you should be playing over here. Like, no one else is putting up that argument. So why would you put up the argument the other way when they're all still under 18? I don't understand that. And I don't understand why you guys have, and these are, I'm not talking to everyone that's listening to this, I'm talking to those that are listening to this and they have in their mind this idea of like, oh, well, they shouldn't be there. They shouldn't be there. It's like, why? They're still the same age as everybody else at school. They're not turning 19. And if they're going to turn 19, they won't be in New Zealand secondary schools. They won't even be in the under 18s Chiefs or the under 18s Blues or the under 18s Highlanders or Crusaders, because they're not under 18. They're turning 19. So if you ever see like a really good player who's blowing up and he doesn't make the team, then it's like, yeah, he must be turning 19. If everyone's talking about him, and like, I would mention that he would be eligible. I would mention that they wouldn't be eligible. If someone asked me, like, why isn't he there, and he ends up being 19, I'll tell that person personally, like, oh no, he's turning 19. You'll probably see him in the trials for, under 20s or something. But I'm not going to put that kid's name out there and say, his name, he is 19. I was like, I'm not going to write an article about that. Who cares? You don't know what his deal is for coming back to school. It's like, maybe he just needs credits. But that's my thing. It's just like, why not let all these young year 13s come back to school? The next year is to still turn 18 like everybody else and still be under the under 18 umbrella for which schoolboy rugby is. Under 18. Now in South Africa it's different because they play under the under 19 umbrella of age group. As the normal season, you can play as an under 19 player, but then when they go to some separate tournaments, the under 18 ones, that's different. We don't have any kind of rule like that here for our schoolboy rugby. Everything is under 18s. Now there's rules where you can have an under 19 player in your team, but you can only have one, and then you can only have 2 international players or 3 international players, but only 2 of them can only be on the field at one time, and you can't have all 3 of them on something like that. I got to brush up on what that rule actually is, but it's like that. I just want to make it clear that just because you're year 14 does not mean that you're turning 19. Young year 13 means you're 16 turning 17 in your year 13 year. That's all it means. It means that you could still come back next year and still be under the umbrella of under 18s because you're 17 turning 18. Now, I'm going to get off this subject because it annoys me. It annoys me that a lot of you guys are like that. Even the ones that follow my page, you just, I don't know what you want to do with that information, but for some reason, it's not acceptable to people. For some reason. Even when they're underage. But reasons for my top 5. So I feel like, and I don't know how they're going to do it, but I feel like these guys, people should come together and be able to get funding and support for these teams to be put together. Now, the New Zealand secondary schools, they usually play against Australia, Fiji, and then usually a New Zealand Barbarians team would play, or an Australian secondary school A team will play. So if they play in New Zealand, if the tournament's here in New Zealand, then the New Zealand Barbarians play. If it's over in Australia, then the Australia A team plays as part of the New Zealand secondary schools, New Zealand Australian secondary schools, and Fijian secondary schools. And then so they have 4 teams. Now, they can't do that this year, obviously, with COVID and the way that things are done. So I think that New Zealand secondary schools should play New Zealand Samoan schools, New Zealand Tongan schools, Māori under 18 team, and also a New Zealand Barbarians team. And I think that having a mini tournament with 5 of those teams, all of them New Zealand talent, all of them New Zealand Rugby signed to play in New Zealand, should be a way for provinces and franchises to look at all these players and to have the best talent on board and on show, so that there's a lot more scouting of these players. Now, the reason why I say that is because the Crusaders and Highlanders we won't see. It's not. I don't think it's going to be televised. I don't even think it's going to be live streamed, which sucks because, you know, Highlanders are so... I don't know what the Highlanders deal is and why they're like this, but they never ever really say who they've picked for their Highlanders under 18s team. They never put it out there, and they never, they never celebrate the boys by doing that. They never give these boys, some highlight, and it's because they're so scared of losing players for some reason. So it's like they're so scared of showing their talent, kind of like what New Zealand is, where they don't like to, celebrate New Zealand first team rugby because they feel like NRL is going to steal their players, or someone else going to steal, so they don't do anything about it. So they kind of keep them under wraps and then keep them in secret. I don't know why they do it because it's so stupid. But Highlanders and Crusaders are playing. We're probably not going to see them. We're probably not going to we're probably not going to get a live stream. I don't know if what the Blues, Chiefs, and Hurricanes are doing, where they're all picking 2 teams each and they all get to play off against each other or whatever. But with crossing lines, you probably get a better chance of Hurricanes and Chiefs playing than the Blues and Chiefs playing at this point of how the Blues are going. So you're never going to be able to see all this talent in one place and be able to hold camps. I think it would be a better idea if all those 5 teams got together, New Zealand secondary schools, New Zealand Samoan, New Zealand Tongan, a Māori team, and a New Zealand Barbarian team. If all 5 teams got together, we put together, all 5 teams went through training camps, blah, 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 whatever, and then had a mini tournament with just those 5 teams, so that everybody who can come, who are player agents, who are scouts, who are, whatever, can all come and then see them all in training, see them all how they react and, counter-react and react and learn off each other and all that kind of stuff. And then we're able to see New Zealand secondary school players play within their jerseys. Last year's game was fine. That's fine. That's okay. But you just had 2 teams that played against each other, and then they just picked the team. But you never actually saw the New Zealand secondary school team play. Those boys never actually got to put on the jersey and play in the jersey to represent their side. I think it would be a better idea if they picked their side and then played against a Samoan team and a Tongan team and a Māori team and New Zealand Barbarians team, and have enough talent that they can be competitive against the New Zealand secondary schools team. I feel like there's this fear, and I don't know if it's true, but I feel like there's this fear that New Zealand Rugby are scared to do something like that. Not because they're going to lose, because they're not. They're not going to lose 100%. They get the first pick of all their players. That's the New Zealand secondary schools team, and everybody else picks after that. But I have this feeling that they're scared that you're promoting Samoan rugby, Tongan rugby, and New Zealand Māoris. It's like, no, because if you offered any of those kids a spot on New Zealand secondary schools team, they'll take the New Zealand secondary schools team over Samoa and Tonga. And if you're one of those guys that's like, nah, I wouldn't, it's like, wait until you see that letter and wait until you get that phone call. Because 100% you'll rather play for New Zealand secondary schools than you would for Samoa and Tonga and the Māori team, because on your rugby CV it's going to mean more to a lot of people. And then the achievement is there. Because for all you Samoans and Tongans now, if you were picked to New Zealand secondary schools and you said, no, I'm waiting for Samoa to pick me, you're not going to have a game. It's not going to be, no one's going to recognise it kind of thing. But if you get New Zealand secondary schools next to your name on your rugby CV, that is impressive. Because that most likely puts you into a position that you're going to trial for the New Zealand under 20s, which is kind of what you want. Now, New Zealand should use this they should use this as a opportunity to have all the best players in one place, to have all the best players training with all the best coaches, and then the next under 20s coaches, the under 20s coaches can come and watch these high school boys and go, oh, I'm going to keep an eye on this kid coming through. I'm going to keep an eye on this kid coming through for themselves. Not going through selectors doing this, like just guys that they like for themselves. Now, I feel like this tournament would be better. I feel like this tournament would give the boys who make New Zealand secondary schools a shot to wear their jersey, as well as everybody else being able to play at a high level of rugby, and everybody get a shot at playing the top of the top kind of thing. And then having the balance of all those teams after New Zealand secondary schools is picked, having all the best Samoans, all the best Tongans, all the best Māoris in one team, and all the rest, everybody else in the other one. That will give a good balance of talent through everybody, and then different kind of playmakers and different kind of situations for all these other guys and all these other teams. You're going to be playing against your own teammate who's Samoan, and the other old teammate who's Māori, and the other guy who's Fijian. He's going to be in the New Zealand Barbarians team with everybody else, and you get to play against everybody who are your teammates, but they're also at a high level. Even higher than the Blues under 18s, Chiefs under 18s, and Hurricanes under 18s, and that lot. It's going to be higher than that lot because you get to bring them all together again. And then you're going to have the best team, which is the New Zealand team. Now, the other side of that would be, well, where's the funding coming from? That's where New Zealanders and the New Zealanders and Tongans have to get together as a group and go, well, let's start asking those who own businesses to see if they can start sponsoring them. But if they make that decision quickly now, then it gives those organizations time to go and find out all the guys that they can go and ask for help. They can find a coaching staff really fast. I think the Tongan team and the Samoan team can find a coaching staff really fast, and then make sure that they can all reach out and use all their contacts to start getting and putting in place companies that will help them out. I don't see that as being a problem at all. I would think that a lot of companies would want to jump on board and be able to help them out. And do your advertising on the jerseys and blah, 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 and whatever. But I think it will be a great idea. Standpoint of rugby-wise, great idea. Standpoint of making sure that, representing your countries, great idea. And all these players are going to stay in New Zealand anyway. All these players are going to be, most of them are going to be in New Zealand anyway. And so when I pick my team, what I'm going to do is I'm pretty much going to put out my roster for everybody if the situation was going to go on. So I'm picking my New Zealand team, my New Zealand secondary school. This is mine, not what I think they're going to pick, just what I would pick. Then I'm going to pick a Samoan team. Then I'm going to pick a Tongan team. Then I'm going to pick a Māori team and a New Zealand Barbarians team. And they're all going to be 30-man rosters. All 30-man rosters. I'll put them out one day at a time and then see what everyone thinks about them. And maybe make a video at the end or make a video after I put out every single one of them. Something like that. But, yeah, this is just a short Monday morning meeting. That's all I wanted to get out because I feel like we got too much talent in New Zealand. We got too much talent. A lot of boys on the rise. There's a lot of great Year 12 players coming through, even Year 11s. Some solid Year 11 players coming through. I'm also starting to get together a Year 10 roster as of right now, and then putting it together. So if you want to send me guys that you feel from your school that are going to be solid Year 11s next year, and that you feel like they should be in the rankings, send me send me their names, their positions, schools, and all that kind of stuff. Then through the off season, I'll go and do my homework, and go and see, go and see what they're about, ask some questions, do my little bits and pieces on all these boys, and and then hopefully see them in the first 15. But these year 11s this year are really, really good, and I don't know if they're better than the year 12s this year than what they were last year, but there's some good kids out there. And I don't know, I mean, I think just for myself, because I'm watching it every year, I feel like our year 10s to year 11s are getting better year by year. I think they're getting better. I think there's a lot more year 11s, especially at boys' schools, that are making first 15s, which is not like a common thing. It's not a common thing for a lot of year 11s to make first 15 in year 11. It's a private school thing they usually do, because rosters are real finicky in a way that if you get one or two bad injuries, your coaches are really scrambling to find some good covers, mainly for the bench. They start looking at their under 15s and their second 15s or under 16s if they have it. And when there's injury problems, these are, it's like a headache for them. And so it's, I feel like these year 10s are going to be, it's going to be cool to find out who all the year 10s are that have already played first 15. Guys that are around looking for that opportunity to play first 15 as well. You two guys are going to get scholarships over the holidays too, so it'll be good to see those boys that shift schools. I mean, I know people don't like that stuff, but I see the benefit in it. I see the reasons why kids shift schools. Because some people want to be professionals and other kids just want to play rugby. I think the ones that want to be professionals go to where the best opportunities are, especially education-wise. If you go from a small school to a big school that's heavy educational and also heavy into sports, it's why is that not appealing? Why would you not take that? Especially if your idea is to be, and your goals and dreams are to be a professional. It's why are you getting angry at the kid for? That kind of stuff. And so I'm always interested in that kind of thing, especially in the off season, and seeing where everyone goes and who switches up, and who takes the scholarships and who doesn't. And I tell you, there's been some guys that haven't accepted scholarships that have been really, really hard, and there's guys on the other side too. But even on the other side, the guys that have given them the opportunity to take a scholarship and they've taken it, have made it really pay off for them. I mean, look at Samasone Takuyahu. If he didn't take his scholarship to St. Paul's Collegiate, it's we wouldn't have this All Black. He might not even been a Tongan player. He might have just been that's all right. I mean, even Nella, Tupou, if he didn't take his scholarship to Sacred Heart, maybe he wouldn't have been a Wallaby. Maybe he wouldn't have even played rugby after a while. He'd just be in his village, just working his normal job and, things like that. Because it really is hard, especially for some of these island boys and the Fijian players and stuff, Tongans and Fijians and that. And Samoa has pretty much cut off New Zealand in terms of recruiting Samoan players. If you really look, they're not really recruiting a lot of Samoan players. And it's they've just cut everybody off from recruiting Samoan players, and you're just getting more Fijians and Tongans. I mean, I only know of one guy that's actually recruited from Samoa to come here and play rugby. I'm not going to say his name, but I just know one Samoan guy. There was one 2 years ago that was recruited, and apart from that, that's really the only ones. Not many of them. And they've taken the other pathway where they're sending them over to Europe rather than send them here, and send them to Japan and send them here. But I mean, that's what you do. I mean, that's kind of what you want them to do as well, is just take the opportunity that's going to get them further in their career and further into their goals. And I mean, when you're from the islands, like it's that opportunity is a life-saving opportunity, and guys take it really seriously when they're given those opportunities. Look at the Tuilangi brothers, how much has changed their lives, that they took all the rugby opportunities, built on it, and got all the brothers over there, all playing rugby, all earning really good pay packets, blessing their family and their village and, everybody else that come under it with the opportunity, and how much it's changed their life. And I mean, when you look at guys like that, look at Malokai Fikitoa when he came from Tonga to Wesley, and now he's been on All Black and making a lot of money and helping out his family. Is like, that's kind of what you want, That's kind of what you're gunning for. And so even for and just because they're from the islands, it doesn't mean that even New Zealanders have that same dream and that same drive to get further in your further in your career. I mean, Dalton said it on Papali'i said it on the news too. If they asked him, it was like, well, if you didn't go to St. Kentigern's, do you think you would have been professional? And he just said no. He goes, St. Kentigern's helped me get there. They showed me what was right. They showed me what was what I needed to do and all that kind of stuff. And I bet you any other guy would say the same things, whether he went to St. Kitts or to Kings or to Mags or to Hamilton Boys or to wherever else, Scots College or whatever. It's just like a lot of these guys say, it was actually a lot different. It was actually a lot better for me. Because they came from small schools that didn't really care that much about rugby, or half the guys don't care, half the guys don't turn up to trainings, and half the guys go and party on Fridays and be like, it'll be right, we'll be, games at 2:30. It's like, we'll sober up by then or whatever it is. But anyway, I'm rambling now. Anyway, that's Monday morning meeting. Any questions that you want to know, anything that you want to speak to me about, I don't know when I'm going to put out my teams, but it will be really, really soon. And I tried to change the rankings. I tried to put the final rankings up a few months ago, or about a month ago, and then I checked it again, and for some reason it didn't change. So just keep an eye on that, because the final rankings will be up for players from all the the year 11s, year 12s, and the year 13s, and also the top 100 teams. For some reason it didn't change, so I've got to figure it out. I don't really know anything about this, because exactly, if you've been following my page, how terrible I am at this stuff, and it frustrates me. But this is Herschel Fruin, High School Top 200. Peace.